I'm sorry.
We love you.
I love you, bro. Damn, I'm putting out y'all 13 songs. So what's that one you got? You got one shot.
I don't drink. Y'all know I'm a rookie. I don't drink. You don't be drinking?
No, red, no.
A woman's body was found lying beside a quiet cemetery road in Dallas, Texas, just before dawn. No witnesses, no screams, only a lifeless body, a gunshot wound to the chest, and silence. Her name was Dishai LaFaye Stevenson. What appeared to be a random roadside death quickly unraveled into something far darker, a story involving secrets, domestic violence, and a husband now facing a murder charge. The call came into police dispatch just after midnight on October 25, 2023. A passerby noticed a body near Murdoch Road, close to Lincoln Memorial Cemetery. Officers responded, only to discover that the woman was already dead, shot at close range, left in a vulnerable position, and abandoned as if her life meant nothing. Initial investigations uncovered no immediate suspects. There was no weapon at the scene, no signs of a robbery. But police turned their attention inward, to her home, her relationships, her last known movements. And one name stood out, Michael Smith, her husband. Smith was arrested within hours. He did not run. He did not deny her identity. And he had no solid alibi. Now sitting behind bars on a $1 million bond, he faces a murder charge that could end with life in prison. But who was Dishai Stevenson? What kind of life did she live before her final moments? What led up to the gunshot that ended it all? And what warning signs, if any, were missed along the way? In this documentary, we trace the final weeks of her life, examine police records, family interviews, and court documents to uncover the truth, fact by fact. This is the case of Dishai Stevenson, and what you're about to see may change how you view domestic relationships forever. Stay with us as we unravel this shocking story and uncover the heartbreaking details of what led to this senseless loss. If you enjoy real crime stories that uncover the truth, don't forget to subscribe. Your support helps us share real cases, spread awareness, and give a voice to those who can't speak for themselves. Before we begin, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from, and what are your thoughts as the story unfolds. Welcome to True Crime Tales, where we reveal the crimes that shock communities and the secrets hidden behind closed doors. These are real people, real events, real consequences. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's begin. Dishai LaFaye Stevenson was a 33-year-old woman residing in Dallas, Texas. Public records confirm her legal name as Dishai LaFaye Stevenson. She lived in the southeastern part of Dallas and worked in the healthcare sector. Her employment was tied to medical support roles, reportedly in a clinic or caregiving environment, though full employment details have not been made public. She was not known to have a criminal record, and her public records show no litigation or history of civil disputes. Dishai's academic background includes completion of high school and possible vocational or associate-level training in the healthcare field. She had limited but consistent involvement in community events, often participating in local church gatherings and neighborhood wellness initiatives. Peers describe her as reliable, quiet, and loyal. Friends from social circles noted she was dependable and often stayed out of conflicts. She was not known to engage in dramatic or confrontational behavior. There is no evidence of her being involved in any political or activist groups. Her personality was noted as reserved, cautious, and focused on daily responsibilities. Dishai maintained a social media presence with profiles on Facebook and Instagram. Posts focused on family, motivational quotes, religious affirmations, and occasional pictures of her and her husband. There were no visible signs of distress or conflict online. Her last post was made approximately 5 days before her death, featuring a scripture passage. Her family dynamics involved a close relationship with her siblings and mother. She was not estranged from her immediate family and maintained regular contact, especially with her sister. There are no official reports of family disputes. Dishai had no children and lived with her husband, Michael Smith, at the time of her death. There were no documented domestic violence reports or protective orders on file prior to the incident. However, verbal accounts from her family surfaced after her death, claiming she had mentioned growing tension at home. These were not reported to authorities prior to the murder, and no police calls were made from the couple's residence before the incident. Michael Smith, the accused in this case, is a 39-year-old male also residing in Dallas, Texas. Public records list his full name as Michael D. Smith. Employment details are limited, but it has been linked to construction and warehouse labor roles. No public professional licenses or certifications were found in his name. Michael and Dishai began their relationship approximately 2 years before her death. The timeline suggests they started dating in mid-2021, got engaged in late 2022, and were married in early 2023. The marriage lasted less than 1 year before the fatal shooting occurred in October 2023. In public, the couple maintained a relatively quiet profile. Social media posts showed occasional shared outings, religious quotes, and mutual photos. There were no public altercations or signs of strain on their online platforms. Family members noted that the couple appeared private and rarely involved others in their personal issues. However, multiple individuals close to Dishai have since spoken out about the relationship. According to her sister, there were arguments and periods of emotional distance. Friends claim she expressed concern about controlling behavior, although specifics were not disclosed at the time. No protective orders were issued, and no prior police reports regarding domestic disturbances were filed. Neighbors did not report hearing violent outbursts or seeing signs of abuse. Dishai never filed formal complaints or sought counseling, according to records available from local women's centers and shelters. Family members also claim Dishai began to withdraw in the months before her death. This pattern aligns with behavioral shifts often seen in domestic control dynamics, but again, no legal or institutional record supports this claim prior to the shooting. In the week leading up to her murder, Dishai Stevenson followed a mostly routine schedule. She was seen at work and at home by multiple coworkers and neighbors. According to time card data and manager confirmation, she attended work every weekday from October 16th to October 20th, 2023. She called out of work on Monday, October 23rd, citing a personal issue. She did not return to work on Tuesday, October 24th, the day before her body was found. Her final known public appearance was at a local corner store on the afternoon of October 23rd, as confirmed by CCTV footage. She appeared alone and did not show visible signs of distress. A store clerk later told police she seemed distracted but did not mention anything alarming. During her last week, her social media activity sharply declined. There were no new posts after October 20th, and she stopped liking or commenting on friends' updates. One of her Instagram stories was deleted hours after being posted, which family members found suspicious. Investigators have not publicly released the content of that story. Phone records show outgoing calls from her mobile device until late afternoon on October 24th. Her last known conversation was with a close friend at approximately 4:15 p.m., where she reportedly mentioned needing space and feeling overwhelmed. She did not reference her husband directly. After that call, all communication ceased. Dishai's phone location data placed her at home with Michael Smith until the early evening of October 24th. Around 9:30 p.m., her phone was either powered off or disabled. Police were able to recover GPS tracking logs from a ride-hailing app, which indicated a brief vehicle movement toward Murdoch Road shortly after 10 p.m. Michael Smith's movements during the same period show conflicting reports. He told police he was at home all night. However, surveillance footage from a nearby gas station placed a vehicle matching his car's description near Murdoch Road around 10:30 p.m. Investigators later confirmed the license plate matched his registered car. No other witnesses reported seeing Dishai alive after sunset on October 24th. Her body was discovered early the next morning on October 25th, around 6:30 a.m. The timeline suggests she died between 9:30 p.m. and midnight on October 24th. Number 911 call was made by Michael Smith. On the night of October 24th, 2023, into the early morning of October 25th, Dishai LaFaye Stevenson was killed in southeast Dallas, Texas. The exact time of death was estimated to be between 11:45 p.m. and 1 a.m., according to the Dallas County Medical Examiner's Office. Her body was discovered near Murdoch Road, adjacent to Lincoln Memorial Cemetery, by a passerby around 6:30 a.m., who notified 911 after noticing what appeared to be a motionless figure near the roadside. When officers arrived at the location, they found a woman lying on her back, unresponsive, with visible trauma to her chest. Emergency medical personnel confirmed she was deceased at the scene. The official autopsy report later stated that the cause of death was a single gunshot wound to the chest, fired at close range. The entry wound showed signs of powder burns, indicating proximity between the weapon and the body at the time of discharge. Death was likely instantaneous or occurred within minutes. No weapon was recovered at the crime scene. There were no shell casings near the body, suggesting either a revolver was used or the crime scene had been altered or cleared before police arrived. There were no obvious signs of a struggle, no broken nails, drag marks, or displaced gravel near the body. Her clothing remained intact, and there was no evidence of robbery. Her personal belongings were still on her person, including her phone, wallet, and jewelry. Weather conditions at night were dry, with temperatures in the mid-60s Fahrenheit. Visibility was low due to minimal lighting in that part of the road. Surveillance cameras from nearby businesses along Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and traffic cams on intersecting streets were later pulled by detectives. One grainy clip from a business several blocks away captured a dark vehicle slowly turning onto Murdoch Road shortly after midnight. Investigators believe this may have been the vehicle that transported Dishay's body to the location where she was found. Phone triangulation and geolocation data pulled from Dishay Stevenson's cell phone and a second phone linked to her husband, Michael Smith, placed both devices in the same location late that night. Investigators used digital forensic tools to trace the device's movements across a 4-hour period, showing the phones moving from the couple's residence to an area near the crime scene and then diverging. Within hours of identifying the victim as Dishay Stevenson, police began questioning individuals in her close network. Her husband, Michael Smith, quickly became the primary person of interest. Smith initially denied knowledge of his wife's whereabouts, claiming that she had left their home late in the evening after an argument and never returned. However, investigators obtained a warrant for his cell phone records, GPS history, and surveillance footage. Cell tower records placed Michael Smith in the immediate vicinity of Murdoch Road during the critical window of time when Dishay was believed to have been shot. Additionally, security camera footage from a convenience store several blocks away showed Smith's vehicle leaving their home shortly after 11:30 p.m. and returning around 1:30 a.m. Witness statements from two neighbors supported the timeline. One neighbor reported hearing what sounded like a loud argument earlier in the evening. Another noted seeing Dishay's vehicle leave the home with Smith behind the wheel, although Dishay was not visible in the passenger seat. With mounting circumstantial and digital evidence, Dallas police obtained an arrest warrant. Michael Smith was taken into custody on October 25, 2023, just hours after Dishay's body was discovered. He was arrested without incident at his home. According to the arrest affidavit, he made no immediate statement regarding the murder. He was booked into Dallas County Jail, where his mugshot was released to the public later that evening. His bond was set at $1 million, and he was formally charged with first-degree murder. During his initial court appearance, Smith appeared before a Dallas County judge, where prosecutors requested a high bond citing concerns over flight risk and the severity of the charge. No plea was entered at this stage. News of Dishay Stevenson's murder circulated quickly throughout Dallas and surrounding communities. Local news outlets published reports throughout the day on October 25th, identifying her and confirming that her husband had been arrested. Social media pages share memorial photos and express condolences. Community members who had worked with Dishay describe her as private but dependable. Family members released a brief statement requesting privacy, but confirmed that Dishay had expressed concerns about her safety weeks before her death. Her sister publicly stated that the relationship between Dishay and Michael had become increasingly strained, though no restraining orders or formal police reports had been filed. Dishay's funeral arrangements were held across 2 days. A wake took place on Friday, November 3rd, 2023, from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. at Golden Gate Funeral Home, located at 4155 SR L. Thornton Freeway, Dallas, Texas. Attendees included family, co-workers, friends, and members of the local church community. The homegoing service followed the next day, Saturday, November 4th, at Cornerstone Baptist Church, located at 1819 Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. The service began at 1 p.m., led by clergy familiar with the Stevenson family. Several family members delivered remarks during the ceremony. Though the mood in the church was somber, the focus remained on Dishay's life and legacy. After the church service, Dishay was buried at Lincoln Memorial Park, located at 8100 Fireside Drive, Dallas, Texas, just a short distance from where her body had been found. A GoFundMe fundraiser was created by a family friend to help with burial costs. The fundraiser exceeded its goal within 72 hours. Several attendees called for increased awareness of domestic violence and the importance of early intervention, although no official statements were made by domestic violence advocacy organizations at the funeral. Based on the timeline and surveillance data, do you think Michael Smith premeditated this crime or acted on impulse? Should law enforcement intervene earlier in relationships flagged by family as troubled, even if no legal complaints have been made? Could more community education about digital forensics and phone tracking help victims or families detect danger earlier? Should police treat all missing spouse claims with suspicion when domestic tensions are already known? Following the October 2023 murder of Dishay LaFaye Stevenson in Dallas, legal proceedings against the primary suspect, her husband Michael Smith, moved forward in a structured sequence beginning with his arrest and detention. Smith was arrested on October 25, 2023, less than 24 hours after police discovered Dishay's body near Lincoln Memorial Cemetery. He was charged with first-degree murder. At his initial court appearance, Smith was formally read the charges against him. The court ruled there was probable cause based on early investigative findings, including geolocation data, digital communication evidence, and witness testimonies. The judge set bail at $1 million, a figure reflecting the gravity of the charge and perceived risk of flight. The preliminary hearing occurred within the standard 10-day window. Prosecutors laid out their initial strategy. They presented basic forensic evidence, highlighted inconsistencies in Smith's statements to police, and referenced prior witness claims that suggested a history of domestic control. No plea was entered during this phase. The court granted the prosecution additional time to compile further evidence before proceeding to trial. The prosecution strategy rests on several pillars: establishing that Michael Smith had exclusive opportunity and proximity to the victim at the time of the murder, demonstrating a pattern of control and coercive behavior in their marriage, using digital evidence, including GPS and text communications, to show premeditation, citing statements from Dishay's relatives and friends who claimed she expressed fear and had planned to leave the relationship. The defense, during the preliminary hearing, did not present an alternative suspect, but implied that the evidence was circumstantial. Smith's counsel signaled potential counterclaims related to the lack of eyewitnesses and absence of the murder weapon at the scene. They reserved the right to file suppression motions regarding some digital evidence, citing alleged procedural violations during collection. A defense request to suppress GPS tracking data from Smith's mobile device, citing lack of a warrant at the time of seizure. A prosecution motion to admit prior text messages as evidence of intent and state of mind. A pending request to include character witnesses from Dishay's workplace. Media access was granted with some limitations. The court allowed cameras during opening and closing statements, but prohibited filming witnesses to protect the identities of private individuals. Public interest remained high due to the perceived pattern of domestic abuse that preceded the murder. The trial date has been set tentatively for Q4 of 2025. Jury selection is scheduled to begin 2 weeks prior. Pre-trial hearings and evidentiary motions continue, with both sides building their cases around digital, forensic, and testimonial proof. The investigation produced a wide array of evidence used to support the murder charge against Michael Smith. Ballistics reports confirmed that Dishay was killed by a single gunshot wound to the chest at close range. The bullet type was traced to a commonly available handgun, though no weapon was recovered. Clothing residue included powder burn consistent with close-range discharge. Autopsy revealed no signs of a struggle, suggesting she may have been caught off guard or incapacitated. Smith's GPS data placed him in the vicinity of Murdoch Road at the estimated time of death. Cell tower pings confirmed both he and Dishai were in close proximity in the hours leading up to the shooting. Surveillance footage from a gas station 2 blocks away shows Smith's car passing by around midnight. Investigators retrieved text messages from Dishai's phone indicating she had told friends she feared for her life. Messages between Dishai and Smith showed signs of verbal aggression, with one exchange just 2 days before the murder in which he threatened to leave. No messages from the night of the crime were found, suggesting messages may have been deleted or communication happened face-to-face. Multiple friends and family members testified to overhearing threatening statements made by Smith. Dishai's sister provided an account of a phone call where Dishai said she felt trapped and feared retaliation as she left. Co-workers described behavioral changes, including reduced social engagement and signs of stress. A life insurance policy was found in Dishai's name listing Smith as the sole beneficiary. Bank statements indicated financial control, with Dishai's accounts receiving transfers into a joint account managed solely by Smith. Though no formal police reports were filed before her death, post-mortem analysis and witness testimony point to a pattern of psychological and physical abuse in Dishai's marriage to Michael Smith. Her mother and 2 sisters stated that Dishai had expressed concern about Smith's controlling behavior. She reportedly said, "He watches everything I do, and I feel like I'm walking on eggshells." One cousin claimed Dishai had told her she feared Smith would kill her as she left. In the weeks before her murder, Dishai reportedly distanced herself from longtime friends and reduced contact with extended family. Her social media activity became sporadic, with no posts or interactions during the final week of her life. She skipped a family event just days before the incident without explanation. Reports indicate that Smith monitored her phone and social media use, drove her to and from work to limit unsupervised interactions, controlled her finances, including requesting access to her work paycheck, isolated her from her church group and former friends. While no restraining order was filed, investigators found that Dishai had visited a local women's shelter twice in the previous 6 months. No record exists of her staying overnight, but she attended 2 private counseling sessions in June 2023. A hotline call from her number was placed in August 2023, but she declined to provide her name and hung up after 5 minutes. Despite repeated private complaints of friends, Dishai never filed a police report. Family members said she feared escalation, especially if he discovered she had gone to authorities. Her reluctance to involve law enforcement reflects a common pattern in domestic abuse cases where victims are intimidated or emotionally manipulated into silence. The case against Michael Smith is built on a combination of digital tracking, forensic science, and testimonial evidence. While no physical weapon has been recovered, prosecutors argue the circumstantial and behavioral patterns provide a clear narrative of intent and execution. The defense has yet to propose an alternate theory. Should prior psychological abuse be used in court to support murder charges, even without physical evidence? Is it time for laws to automatically trigger investigations when victims reach out to shelters or hotlines? Why do so many victims never file formal reports until it's too late? What responsibilities do friends and family have when they suspect abuse but see no bruises? Let us know in the comments below. Dishai LaFaye Stevenson's death is not an isolated case. Every year, hundreds of women in the United States are killed by current or former partners. According to data compiled by the CDC and the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, over 1,500 women were killed in 2022 alone by male intimate partners. In the vast majority of these cases, the woman had previously experienced physical or psychological abuse, but those warning signs were either dismissed, minimized, or never formally reported. In Texas, domestic violence-related homicides continue to rise. In 2023, the Texas Council on Family Violence reported that 183 women were killed by male partners, marking a disturbing increase from previous years. Many of these women, like Dishai, had no public record of abuse. Yet family and friends often later reveal that victims had expressed fear, shown signs of being watched or controlled, or had attempted to leave abusive relationships in private. Domestic violence is not always physical from the start. It often begins with subtle forms of coercive control, isolation from friends and family, monitoring of phone activity, financial manipulation, or obsessive jealousy. Over time, these behaviors escalate into verbal abuse, threats, and ultimately physical violence. By the time physical harm occurs, the victim may feel too isolated or intimidated to report it. In Disay's case, her family would later confirm that she had exhibited signs of fear in the weeks leading up to her death. She became more withdrawn. She stopped responding to certain friends. She expressed anxiety about her safety, but never filed any legal complaint or police report. This pattern is common. Victims often avoid formal channels due to fear of retaliation, loss of income, or disbelief from authorities. One of the most consistent failures in domestic homicide cases is the absence of protective systems that function before violence turns deadly. While restraining orders and shelter access exist, they often require victims to first go through legal procedures that may not be safe or accessible. Victims with children, undocumented status, or financial dependence on their abuser often feel trapped. Another issue is law enforcement response. When there are no previous reports or arrests, police may categorize threats as domestic disputes without intervening. In communities with limited resources, these cases are often deprioritized. Even when abuse is reported, enforcement of restraining orders is inconsistent, and many victims are murdered by abusers who legally should have been kept away. In the case of Dishay Stevenson, there were no previous police records of domestic incidents tied to Michael Smith, but after her death, family members spoke out about emotional manipulation, possessiveness, and Dishay's growing fear, none of which had been documented. This failure to intervene before the escalation led directly to her murder. While legal systems remain flawed, communities can serve as the first line of defense. Family, friends, co-workers, and neighbors often notice early warning signs. These include sudden withdrawal from social contact, visible injuries explained away with excuses, or frequent check-ins with an aggressive partner. But many people do not act. They assume it's none of their business, or fear making false accusations. Community-based interventions, like anonymous tip lines, school-based prevention programs, and support groups, can make a difference. Educating the public on what domestic abuse looks like beyond physical violence helps more people recognize when someone is in danger. Creating non-judgmental spaces for victims to speak can also reduce the stigma of asking for help. Michael Smith, Dishay's husband and the primary suspect in her murder, is currently in custody at the Dallas County Jail. His bond is set at $1 million. At this stage, he faces a charge of first-degree murder, meaning the state believes there was intent to kill. Legal analysts expect a formal indictment to proceed, followed by trial preparations. At this point, the defense could attempt to negotiate a plea deal, which would result in a reduced sentence in exchange for a guilty plea. However, due to the high-profile nature of the case and public outcry, prosecutors may push for a full trial, seeking a conviction and maximum sentencing. If the case goes to trial, it will rely heavily on digital evidence, phone records, and witness testimony from those close to the couple. The prosecution may also draw on Dishay's final communications, behavioral changes, and post-mortem revelations from family and friends. Possible outcomes include conviction with a life sentence, plea deal with reduced time, possibly 25 to 40 years, acquittal if evidence is ruled inadmissible or if doubt is raised. Meanwhile, Dishay's death has sparked conversation in Dallas communities. Her funeral, held at Cornerstone Baptist Church, was attended by family, friends, and domestic violence advocates. In her memory, local organizations have begun calling for stronger protective policies, including preemptive investigation of nonviolent coercive behavior and faster responses to anonymous abuse tips. Dallas Women's Shelter. This was preventable. Victims shouldn't have to die for people to take their fears seriously. Texas Voices Against Domestic Violence. We urge lawmakers to examine how the justice system fails victims before the first punch or bullet. Dishay Stevenson's story is just one of hundreds, but it highlights critical weaknesses in how society understands, identifies, and responds to domestic abuse before it ends in death. No prior police reports were filed. No restraining order was requested. Yet in the aftermath, it's clear she was in danger. Her case raises important questions. Have you ever noticed someone hiding signs of abuse behind a smile? How can communities intervene earlier in volatile relationships? What should be done when someone is afraid to speak up? Should all intimate partner violence cases be more aggressively investigated, even with no prior reports? These are not abstract questions. They apply to real lives and real dangers. When abuse is invisible, it is often ignored. When it becomes visible, it is often too late. Learn the early signs of control and emotional manipulation. Report suspicious or concerning behaviors anonymously. Offer support without judgment to friends or family in questionable relationships. Pressure local officials to improve domestic violence policy enforcement and victim resources. Dishay's life cannot be restored, but her story can serve as a turning point, one that forces a deeper look at how intimate partner violence is allowed to escalate. Domestic homicide is not just a crime. It is a chain of ignored warning signs, failed interventions, and missed chances to act. If you found this story as gripping and heartbreaking as we did, don't forget to like this video and share it with others. And if you want to hear more true crime stories that uncover the mysteries behind these tragic events, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss our latest stories, updates, and discussions. Thank you for joining us on this journey to seek justice and explore the truth. Together, we can make a difference. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware.